if you believe in something you're passionate about, and you've heard a lot of people talk about the same thing, and they are not like any cooler than you are, right? But the people listen to them, right? They're saying the same thing, giving the same material. They're giving out, you know, people listen to them when they say it. That is a disconnection with your personal authority.
Hey there, friends. Are you looking for tools to resolve stress, reliable information to support your whole health, tips to help you motivate yourself and identify when motivation is fading before it happens, implementation, accountability, and someone to remind you to celebrate even the small successes, where you could find tools you can use and accountability in a community that cheers you on, where information about health trends and lifestyle is reliable and straightforward. I know that you have what it takes to up-level your health habits and restore your resilience. You just might need a boost to start building momentum. I've designed a membership where you can choose the level of support you'd like to get every month, whether it's tuning in to connect with like-minded change makers or getting personalized support with one-on-one coaching to help you chart your path to success. Check out the link for the Velocity membership at happifydlife.com. Special pre-launch pricing is now available for premium support, but you can jump in for free if you just want to test the waters. I look forward to seeing you inside. Living in a stressful world doesn't mean you have to give up on happiness. Instead, you can shift your perspective of stress and discover how to live your life in flow. Welcome to Happified. I'm your host, Susi Vine. Join me for inspiration and interviews with folks who are shining their light in the world in the areas of positive mindset, health, and wellness. I'm so happy to have you here.
I am so happy to be back today and to get to introduce to you my dear friend, Monifa Harris. Monifa is a professional voice coach and singer. She is committed to helping those in any field discover or restore their singing voice and build overall confidence through vocal work. Monifa has vocal programs that help professionals from all areas of expertise raise their voice with ease, passion, and presence. She has translated her knowledge of voice, breath, and spirit to help others sing and speak authentically and with certainty, even if they never felt comfortable using their voice before. And she would love to help you discover your true voice and inner strength for deep confidence on stage and in life. Monifa Harris has performed on stages in Florida, California, North Carolina, Washington, D.C., New York, Greece, Canada, and Bulgaria. I'll include links in the show notes so you can connect with Monifa Harris and discover how connecting to your voice helps connect you to your innate power and full expression of creativity. Monifa, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me, Susie.
Yes, this is a treat. And as I've already mentioned to you, and I know that we tend to carry on in conversation, so this may be the first installment. We'll see where this takes us today. But I know we're getting set to cover some great ground. I'm super excited. To start off with, and I know you have a long and winding path, not unlike myself, but what would you have to say? What are some highlights about your journey to find yourself center stage?
Yes, when you say center stage, it's like brings up all the butterflies, and you're like, oh, center stage. Yes, I have been center stage. Wow. Yeah, like it's a long journey because I started as an introvert. So I'm still an introvert in so many ways. I just prefer being by myself, reading books. It's funner. And so when I think of myself center stage, I think of what it took to get me there. And that was passion. I was super passionate about singing and about the music. And so I figured out a way to be a part of it. I was super passionate about getting out so that you don't have to subscribe to the idea that because other people don't recognize your worth, you aren't worthy. you know? So really helping people understand the value of themselves and their voice and the value of whatever they're passionate about. Just because it's not what mainstream people are passionate about doesn't make it less valuable. Um, and honoring that and not making it something that you're like you're ashamed of and all of that kind of thing. I just felt like it had to stop. The craziness had to stop around sidelining what's important to you.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think that's such an important discovery because it's so easy to struggle with that balance of what's a smart choice versus what do I keep feeling called to come back to and share, right? And when you try to
Yeah.
turn down the volume on that, it gets a little bit louder, right? It gets more insistent, and the being authentic is really the best way to tap into your creativity. I'm sure that you cover that with your vocal students.
Yes. Well, it's the way to resource your energy, but it's like, it's also just, it's the way creativity flows. Like, if you go too far off of that thing that feels good for you, then you just end up out there looking weird, you know, which is what we're all trying to avoid. It's better just to, if you're going to look weird, it might as well be like how weird you are and not some other kind of weird that you stumble upon by accident because you're trying to avoid authenticity.
you know
you
it's
know
it's so true, and it reminds me to that lesson that you kind of you learn at school. Hopefully you learn it in school, because otherwise you're just kind of destined to years of pain and misery. But you always remember, looking back, the person who tried really hard to fit in or to be something that they weren't. And it was just some imperceptible difference that made it so much harder for them to fit in because they weren't authentic. And there was just something that didn't read, it didn't land right with others. So even if, you feel like being authentic doesn't fall in line with perhaps a group or an occupation that you feel like you should be in, just stepping into yourself, letting your freak flag fly, just makes it easier for everybody, right? If it's not the right place for you,
yes,
the right place is going to show up as long as you're being authentic.
exactly. Like, don't bother fitting in when it's only going to be comfortable for both ends, but for so long. Um, and then, you're just making each other miserable overall because we're both faking it by that time, So it also reminds me of the fact that your unique characteristics are very much the things that people remember you for, you know. Um, One of my favorite people, like, yes, one of my favorite business coaches is Danielle Leslie, who talks about making your own course. And a big part of how she sets her people apart is that they are supposed to add a culture ad, what she calls a culture ad, which basically means that any experience you've had in your life, anything that's an identifier for you and your culture or your experience, is also something that will make you stand out to the group that would most likely want to work with you.
I love
So
that. That's
yeah, I think it's something people we're so intimidated by the fact that we do have things that don't quite fit in with people that seem successful, that we want to hide those things, and we forget that actually if you hide the stuff that makes you special, then you're no longer visible. You know?
ooh, ooh, that's so good. If you hide what makes you special, then you're no longer visible.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes. You got to step
yeah,
into that scary space and just hold that space until you can fill it, right? I mean, I have some
yeah.
issue with fake it until you make it, but there is a point at which, and when I worked in theater, I wasn't center stage. I chose to keep myself backstage, but that training certainly comes into play. I don't believe that we should fake it, like put ourselves out if we don't have what it takes to back it up. But, do it scared, do it anyway.
Yeah.
You might not feel like you're 100% ready, but you're probably more so than you think you are. So when you
Yes.
go out on faith, that's when the rewards start coming in.
Yeah, I always like there's something weird to me about the idea of fake it till you make it. Like it's kind of like, fake? Like, can that be a good thing? Um, this is something I correlate to being on stage. Like when you pick up a character, when you pick up whatever to perform on stage, like you're not that character, right? But if you want to be honest with yourself or anybody in the room, there's a part of you that
Mm-hmm.
could be that character, right? There's a part of you that kind of likes the character, no matter how bad or good or whatever, how flaky, how whatever. Some part of you is like, I wish I could just do that in my real life. One of my favorite things about being a mezzo and therefore always having like mean roles is, or being a maid, either way, like it's sulking in the background. It's very much a part of my personality. Or you're mean, which is also pretty cool because you never feel like you can be mean in real life. Like you're supposed to be nice, whatever. So there's something I love about playing mean in a role because it becomes this thing where you just got to feel like all those things that you're not supposed to feel. You're not supposed to be angry. You're not supposed to be bossy. You're not supposed to be like all of these things. And so it's not this thing where you're like saying, I'm faking being this character. It's this thing where you're calling up the part of you that feels that way, right? And so you don't want to fake it till you make it, but you do want to admit to the parts of you that are that. So like a lot of times people don't see themselves in authority because they haven't historically been in authority, and they want to be a leader, and so they want to be a leader of office. And when you fake it, you start doing things that people that you think you aren't are are supposed to be, like bossy and like hard nosed and all these things. That's not a real thing. It's just something that's in your head because you haven't had the experience yet. When you can just be like with parts of you that want to get things done, right? I'm super laid back until I have to put on a performance of any kind. Like I put on a lot of private performances in North Carolina, and all of a sudden I'm like, no, it goes this way. This is the entrance. You have 4.24 seconds, 4 minutes and 24 seconds on your song. So let's like keep it within the minute. Like I am specific because I have specific things in mind for what's going on the stage, and it's also how you create a supportive system for people that just need direction, right? To make feel more supported. So it's never something I tried to be when I became that. Like people are like, you're so laid back. I didn't expect that you would be that way. But about music, I am. I am very specific about music. So it wasn't something where I became a different person. It just, I called in the things I thought were necessary for the work I wanted to do, you know? So it's a very different process. Like, and yeah, you're never too far from that person. You just have to admit that to yourself.
Yes, I think that's really brilliant because there's so many different aspects that we end up in, the different roles we serve, whether that's with family or friends or work professionally, and then we get our playtime. And so that's brilliant. You can call in what you need of yourself to do what you need to do in that venue. Be that totally, relax and play and restore yourself, or get down to work, turn things out, it's time to shine. And then you can sit back and step back into your more relaxed mode, once you've delivered.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. Like you can put on different hats for different things. I think there's a book about that. I don't know which book it is. So I'm not sure why I'm mentioning it, but I haven't read it yet. So I need to go find it because it's bound to be good.
It's on the bookshelf. There's a lot of books on my bookshelf.
But yeah.
If I could read
so
by
many.
osmosis, I'd be golden.
Same.
Yes. So one other question that I have for you that came from a conversation we were having the other day when we decided we had to get this on record is how do people tend to feel, how do they struggle with not being seen? Like, what is it that keeps people from stepping up and showing up so that they can be seen?
Well, I think most of the time people are just scared again of being criticized for what makes them stand out. You know, um, I think like for people like me, if you feel like me, then when you were younger, you were a nerd. You were a little bit too, you know, you a little bit too smart. Um, who wants to read books all the time? Not interesting, like that kind of. What made me different was something that most people weren't like looking for in friend status, you know, in like middle school, or high school. You know, it's very uncomfortable to show up when you haven't historically been valued, you
Mm,
know.
that's it.
Yes. Or and often it was probably in your best interest in school if you didn't kind of flaunt the fact that you get straight A's, and you don't flaunt the fact, you know, that you've done things that other people aren't. Like oh yeah, I just got back from band camp. Like you don't really have those conversations around the groups that weren't there with you. So so it's kind of this thing where you learn to hide like different roles for different cliques, because that's how schools work, you know, like different parts of your personality for different cliques. um, I tried to be fairly cool for my friends that spoke Spanish and like came from different countries, and like I went dancing with them, and I did things that I probably hadn't done. Well, I hadn't done anywhere in else in my life. And then when I was in band, it was like, you know, it was one of those things. Well, yeah, I practice all the time, and of course I read sci-fi and what, you know, like, you know, you say what's in your personality so that you can like fit in, right? And then as soon as you're called to stand up by yourself, right, then it becomes a totally different characteristic. Case in point, the difference between being part of a chorus and being a soloist, right? Like in the chorus, your purpose is to blend. You're supposed to fit in, right? You go along with the crowd, otherwise, you know, you're called out for the wrong reasons, right? Like that's just the way it is in the chorus because they want a cohesive sound, and you know. And then as a soloist, you have to take all those things that you dampened in order to fit into the chorus, and you got to turn it up like 1,000%, right? Because now if you can't, you know, if you can't be seen, if you can't cut through and be present to like the mass audience against the background of hundreds of people, you know, then that's a problem, right? Like then you're not up there, right? And I think that's what people forget, like especially if you're stepping up in like a business, a solopreneurship, like any kind of leadership. All of that takes this recovering of all the things that you've probably been hiding for a long time to fit in and get along, right? Like, and then putting that to the forefront so that you can cut through the noise, right? And we were just talking, like, we're so talking about this, right? Because it's not easy to undo that training. And it takes a lot of self-examination. So I'm totally in that process right now as I speak about it.
Yes. And I love that that's just two sides of the same coin, right? We're going from talking about the way that we would kind of shape ourselves to fit different molds, and in a different but similar, you know, somewhat same capacity, we would dampen ourselves so as not to come out, right? So we've narrowed ourselves, and we've squished ourselves into this mold. And so when our opportunity finally comes, like we want to stand out, we want to rise to the top, we want to excel in business or get the promotion or whatever it is in whatever aspect, like we've got to take all that training and recognize it served a purpose over here. And now this is why it doesn't serve us. It's time to step out of that shell.
And you just have to call all those things back to you. Honestly, like even in when I'm giving instructions to chorus, one of my biggest pieces of advice is to sing out, right? Because the more you sing out, the more the people that are with you can, right? And it kind of creates a nice place where everybody feels comfortable being their full selves. Like an ideal environment would be that anyways, right? but if you can lead that charge, you now become the leader of that group as well. So you can do it in baby steps as well. It's just that you have to be intentional. You have to be like intentional about your purpose in doing that, and then not be scared to be like, I did this, this, and this on Friday. Like, I'm really hoping that you guys, like bosses, managers, look, I hope you guys like this because I spent 5 hours Sunday and I just wanted to put this together to to show you what I got, like, and not being afraid to do that either. Just be like, yeah, I want to be noticed. Like, you can't be noticed unless you admit that as well. I'm here to be seen. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so that leads me to another great question that I'm sure in your private coaching and work you do with your students, you really do have to get out of your comfort zone in order to make the music that you are here to bring to the world. So how do you support people in getting comfortable working outside their comfort zone?
Yeah. Um, Really, to me, it's about building like a really core base so that they can know that anything that happens is good, right? Like, I build an environment of experimentation. This is so funny because I've heard this in business as well. But I do build an environment of experimentation. I want them to see what happens, right? And I'm not asking them to get it right. I'm asking them to see what happens, right? The more I can get them to that point where they can see what happens, and then I start pointing them to what they don't want to go to, right? They're like, what I don't know what's going to happen if I do that. And I was like, that's good. Let's see what happens, right? Um, it's so important to really be able to dive into what makes you uncomfortable, which is essentially what we were bringing up so much of, because that's where the new things come from, right? That's where you get to the level of awareness around the issue that can actually transform or transmute that issue, right? And it takes a great amount of intensity, and intensity itself can be uncomfortable, right? So like, we're so used to like being in chill mode, or like just being so much, and it depends. So I have to say this, some uncomfort, like, we're used to having, so the uncomfortable becomes comfortable. I think of this again when I think of work, because like the jobs that I've had where they're super uncomfortable, but you get used to it, you know you get used to the level of uncomfort, and then you kind of get stagnant around it, right? um and then there's uncomfortable that's within. I think that's a completely different thing. Being comfortable in your environment, like trying to fit into a group, might not be comfortable, but it's like, as long as you're fitting in, you feel like you can't be attacked, right? But getting uncomfortable within is where the clarity of what is going to, what needs to change, right? What is different than the way you want it to be. And then you start seeing how real or unreal that is. This is honestly like some of the work of standing out in and of itself, right? Because you realize how much of yourself you're not being, right? And you're like, wow, like I don't know why I'm so uncomfortable sharing this part of myself to this group of people, right? It usually comes again with some kind of conversation in your head around, I'm going to get attacked if I show up this way, right? Like, somebody's going to knock me back down. They're going to think I'm on a high horse and knock me right back down. They're going to think I'm crazy and lock me up. They're going to, like, it's kind of some kind of conversation in your own head around that. And so it really takes getting in there and like sitting in with yourself and saying, okay, where'd you get this idea? Like, are there any examples around you where that's not true? Why do you think it's specifically true for you? Right? Like, just starting to have some real one-on-one time about that, I think it's important. And then for me and my clients, it's really a little bit of faster process, because essentially we're just practicing it in real time by getting connected to our breath and body, and then jumping and seeing if it works, and then getting back to our breath and body, doing it again and seeing if it works. So we're really practicing the experience of getting uncomfortable and showing up in each breath exercise that we do, you know? So it becomes getting comfortable with uncomfortable.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And there's so many, you're just like, there's so many facets of it and aspects of it. And first of all, you have to be in the practice or cultivating the practice of awareness, of recognizing how you feel, what you're resisting, what you feel drawn to, and what's your motivation, right? Because there's the discomfort from working outside your comfort zone because you're expanding your area of ability, you know, and so you've got to press the boundaries and get uncomfortable to grow. But then you bring up that perfect point of, you know, a lot of times that discomfort comes from that voice, the inner gremlin, if you want to call it that, that's like, you probably don't want to do that. You're gonna get set back down. Like, that is not for you. This is, you know, that gremlin that has that, like, I'm here to protect you, you know, so I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't do that or what you're already doing wrong or that sort of thing. And so that discomfort we can't shy away from either. In either case, I guess we have to get more comfortable stepping into it. But you know, sometimes people think, you know, that inner voice, that negative perception that they've got to like square off with it or turn the mute button, you know, and just completely disregard it. But again, that awareness helps you understand where it's coming from. What is it that part of you is trying to protect yourself from? So if you can be aware and say, no, whatever happens, I'm authentic and doing what I feel I need to move forward. And the reception could be this or could be this, but we'll take that on as it unfolds. But I need to step into this and I need to step into that discomfort and not back away from it. And you can grow so much when you, like, with awareness, keep moving into it and pressing your own edges, pressing the limits.
And I mean, you can always just take the blanket statement that whatever your fear isn't real. You can just, you know, there's a lot of great sayings about this that I wish I had the memory for. But the reality, like, it's whatever you're fearing isn't real. Number one, if it's a fear, it hasn't happened yet, right? Like, you're not usually scared of what's not currently happening, right? You're scared of something that it could result in, maybe, but you're not scared of what's currently happening, right? And also that it's you can just consider it a smoke screen, like you said. It's a part of your body that's like keeping you from dying, right? So that's why it feels it's that crucial. This is very true for voice, by the way, because I don't know if it's just like all the well, I know that is like it's all the training that we get from youth around our parents, around our society, as children, where we're not really supposed to, like, we're not important and we're not supposed to talk, you know, we're not supposed to speak up. There's also like kind of the historical fact that people have literally died over stating things that people weren't ready to hear. So there's those things that come up in us every time that we're trying to stand out. One of the biggest things is that, like, if you're not supported by the society, then you become disenfranchised. That's one of the scariest things I think there are for people, because the truth is, if you have no group, then you have nothing to eat from, right? Like, there's no way to earn money. There's no way to survive, essentially. There is, but it's harder to survive on your own, right? And there's something like deep within us that knows that. And that's what it's trying to save us from. Like, whoa, it's like, this is, I don't know, like how random people in the world are going to take this, right? Like, I don't know, they're going to think, yeah, all that stuff. And like, the more we focus in on what we fear, the more we're just creating like imaginary people and like then we bring them all to the place that we're going to show up, and then we wonder why we're nervous, right? Like you just you just have to realize those things aren't real, and that you can choose to be more present to self. Like, and that's where it becomes really important to have some kind of process that brings you back to the moment, back to like your intention, talking to who you want to speak to. Like, so even if that's your manager and you think, oh, I don't even know if my manager likes me, like you can assume that they do, right? And then you can talk to them like, my manager thinks I'm the best, and just talk to them as if, because you won't know until, right? You won't know until you actually have the conversation, right? And so until then, it's just an unfounded fear. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so, the energy that we put out there is so powerful. So that's terrific. Is like, instead of the worst case scenario, why not buy into the best case scenario?
Right.
And come from that energy and come from that higher vibration, and then see what comes into your field, right? As opposed to expecting the worst. I get to tell this to my husband now and then. If you keep looking for the trouble to come and find you, it is easy to see it coming.
Oh yeah.
But if you keep looking for the better stuff, then you notice it. And our brains are so wired, just like you're saying, that fear, like we are wired to be defensive, to protect ourselves, to be ready to cut and run. Like that's our biological wiring, because that's what we came with. But this programming we have control over. So we get to choose to say, no, I don't have to be afraid of what's going to happen. I'm going to expect the best, and I'm going to keep on seeking that out. And then we actually pattern our brain to look for those, to validate that. And so it just starts that upward cycle instead of the downward trend.
For sure, for sure. For sure, for sure. And like, and that's what's beautiful about a lot. Like, I know that you've had a lot of amazing people on in the group, and what's amazing about that is that you have all these tools that will bring you back to a place where you can reset the program. Like I believe like you had somebody on with breath work. You had somebody on with what's a Tai Chi.
Yep, we did a little Tai Chi in my little reset challenge.
Yeah. And like those things get you back into a presence of your body that make you realize what smokescreen, what fears are smokescreen, and what then like get you back to the actual pure vision of what you want as a result. And then when you're working off of that material, it gets 10 times easier. It gets 10 times easier. So I think, that's an essential point. Like, it's kind of like the difference. And that is the difference to me of, again, like kind of faking it till you make it, and actually just pulling in the part of you that believes it, right? If you didn't believe you could be given a raise, if you didn't believe that you could build a business, right? That you wouldn't be having this conversation with yourself at all, right? So there's a part of you that believes it can happen. And that's what you want to get in touch with. Yeah.
Yes, so important. And it's the power of where we put our attention, and that practice over time makes it easier. Then you don't have to be reminding yourself to get into that frame of mind. It becomes the way that you operate. So you can cut out all that noise and obstacles.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
So I feel like we've been talking quite a lot. I mean, it makes sense to me, but it has since we met, and I heard about your mission, about why connecting to our voice and stepping into it helps people excel in other areas. At the same time, I understand, like, it can be hard for people who hear about this correlation and they say, but that's cool. I don't need to sing. I just, sure, I wish I felt more confident in the meetings. I wish I had more power in the boardroom. I wish, I don't really get the voice connection. So beyond, the basic lessons that we've talked about authenticity and stepping into your power and recognizing the difference of taking center stage versus like blending into the chorus. Are there other ways in which you see your clients finding it easier to bring some of these lessons, or what are these lessons that they can take back with them to kind of shine in the business capacity?
Yes, like it really is that ability to tap into what you really are trying to do in any given moment, and then express it, right? Because there's something that comes up on the on the way out. Like there's something that comes up on the way out, and honestly, that's one of the reasons why my marketing specifically points to non-singers, because if you're discerning enough to realize that something's not quite going right with your voice, whether that's by somebody telling you or some like real-time experience, what happens with that is that you have the discernment to understand what it would take to move forward as well, right? And I think a lot of people, again, they just assign the voice as something that special people do. And so they think, oh, I don't really do that. Like, but I do want to be confident. Can we just talk about speaking? You know, and my answer is always like, yeah, we can talk about speaking if you're willing to work with your singing voice, right? Because what happens in singing that doesn't happen quite with anything else is that it affects your nervous system. There's like a few ways, and this is specifically because of the vagus nerve. So if anybody has heard about this in combination with any like long-term illnesses or a lot of things that sometimes are hard to point out in the beginning, like it could be coming from a lot of different directions in the body, right? They'll talk to you eventually about the vagus nerve, right? Because it's the main cord of connection to the whole body, right?
Yeah,
And
it is.
when
It's
you,
the one cranial nerve that
yeah,
actually integrates with most of our major organs. It's
mm-hmm.
incredible. Yeah, I'm
It's
sorry. Go ahead.
absolutely incredible. Yes. And so there's a few ways that you can stimulate the vagus nerve. People keep saying that you can hold your breath. In my belief, you can't just hold your breath. Like you can't just stop breathing, right? Like it has to be some kind of thing where you're relaxing enough that you can like trigger the vagus nerve, which is you have to get basically relax their vocal cords to the back of your throat. And there's you can just breathe to do that and then hold your breath, breathe out and then hold your breath to do that. Um, but then everything else is vocal. So chanting, singing, humming are the other ways to stimulate the vagus nerve. So automatically you can get into a feeling of confidence, right, when you stimulate your vagus nerve. And I always say this because people want to be confident, but they just assume that, again, it's kind of a special people thing. Like you're there, like, how do I get confident? You do like cool people things, right? Like, no, like it doesn't work that way. You have to be confident before you do the cool things, right? And so one of the ways to be confident is just to get your body in state so that it feels cool, calm, and collected, right? That kind of feeling of I've got this. And one of those ways is to stimulate the vagus nerve. It slows down your heart rate. It just gives you this feeling of full body relaxation. So when you do the work, when you do breath work, also can help with somebody who knows what they're doing. And then vocal work is specific because you not only get the benefit of that automatic stimulation of the vagus nerve, but you also get the vibrational resonance of that stimulation as well. So you can shift things in like minutes and minutes with attention and awareness. You can shift things in minutes, including your mindset and how you come to the table. So I've had people like with 2-3 sessions that end up having conversations with their spouse, partner, ex, that they would have never said before, right? That it in more with more clarity, with more authority, with more confidence than they've had in a long time. They've been able to have these conversations. And that just comes from being present to your body and having real, like, intimate experience of how you feel, like, at any given moment, right? Singing does this in a way that just it can't be done any other way, in my opinion. And if you know anything about chakras, like if you know about throat chakra, right, and you know that it's the chakra where we come with expression and also creation. Like, so it's something I always bring up, the fact that the creation of the world was of two things. There's the first command, not commandment, but that's like when God first spoke the world into existence, let there be light, was what he said, right? So the first things were, light, and that he spoke, right? Like, those are real things. So that if you're not into that version, there's the Om is supposed to be the sound, the original sound, the sound in which creation was born, right? And so it's a sound that creates that. So if you want to create anything new in your life, this is why people were into affirmations for so long. If you want to create anything new in your life, you have to be able to speak it, and not to speak it, but to speak it with authority. And if you don't know what authority feels like, you might want to get acquainted to it. Yeah, like what does that feel like in your body, right? Like, you just that's the process. That's why I'm so passionate about it, because you have the experience of something that you might only know by, stories that other people have told you. All right. And so you want to be able to experience that yourself. Sound is powerful. And when you can really know how to tap into your own authority with your own voice, then everything you say is power. Like, nobody's going to ignore you, even if you're wrong. I hate to say it, but it's true. Like, a lot of times I'll just be talking. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm lying. Give me a second. Like, because like I get excited, and then I'm like, and then I saw, and I was like, wait a minute, I think that's an imagination. And so but people are involved in it because that's what acting is, right? They get so involved in the story, like, because you're saying it like it's real, right? And if you believe in something you're passionate about, and you've heard a lot of people talk about the same thing, and they are not like any cooler than you are, right? But the people listen to them, right? They're saying the same thing, giving the same material. They're giving out, people listen to them when they say it. That is a disconnection with your personal authority. Yeah. And like, that is something that can be easily fixed if you're willing to work with your voice.
That's the secret. First,
Yes.
you have to be willing to do a little bit work. But secondly, you can, and I just love it. I love how science and biology are catching up with concepts and theories that we've had for millennia. But the fact that, you can use your energy, like you can use your attention and intention, you can use your breath to change your biological process, to slow your heart rate down through your breath, through the choice that you make, you can change your biology. By changing your biology and turning down your stress response, you have room for your creativity, for your intention to be expressed. Because there's only so much bandwidth we have, right? So instead of letting the noise take up the space, we can tune that down and then have all of this space to express and get authentic and bring out what we're here for.
Yeah, there's so much space in there when we make the choice to create it. And but first you have to get acquainted that it's valuable. You say you work with your breath, and people are just like, I breathe already. And like, so they discount it, right? You say, I used to say all the time, anybody can sing, but like, it totally kills like people's belief in me, because they're like, no, that's not true, So I had to leave that at the door. But like, that feel like, but when I say, yeah, no, your voice can lead you there, whether you can sing or not, right? Like, that thing that you just want to say like, yeah, I'm not going to buy into that. Right. Like that thing of like not even wanting to try the tool that can work is our inner resistance overall. Right. So I like all the time, I'm always mentioning, well, what makes it less valuable? Like what makes it less valuable to you? Is it because, you can't put it in a package and sell it? Is it because you won't put it in you don't plan on becoming a professional singer, so therefore it's not valuable enough to work on, right? Like who's determining what's valuable to you, right? You breathe every second of the day, right? So importance level, like in real life, like you stop breathing, there's problems, right? So let's think about like less about like, can you sell it at the store, and more about how often do I use this thing? Should I get to know it?
Yes. Should I take advantage
like,
of this tool that I have?
Exactly. How often, like our voice is how we communicate with the world, our families, our friends, our partners, right? Like you should know how to do it with passion, with presence, with, love, because it'll invite all things good to you.
Yes. Oh, I love it. I knew this was going to be a great conversation. Thank you, Monifa, for bringing some reality to it, some insights. I hope that there's so much to take away from this conversation, so it's probably worth another listen or two. I'm definitely going to enjoy editing this one and getting to listen to it all over again. Thank you so much for carving out a little bit of time and joining me. I appreciate you.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. I thank you so much, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your day. I'll see you guys over there at Stress Less. Is that what it's called? What's your name of your group?
The Reset to De-Stress. Well, that was the name of the challenge that I started the group in. So now the group is Live with Less Stress. That's over on Facebook. Yeah. And my website is 3x Less Stress. It gets a lot of confusing. There's a lot of S's. It's just like
there's a lot of
S's. Rolling in the mic pop and everything.
I was going to say the name of your company, but then I realized it was a different name for the group. That's why I was like, oh, maybe I should ask before I just put that out there.
I'm on all channels. Yes. And Monifa, I'm going to drop it in the show notes, but tell us your website where people can find you.
Yes. You can find me at monifa.harris.com. monifaharris.com. So no dot between the names. You can find me. It's also better just to kind of find me on Facebook, because I don't keep my website super updated. And you can see what I'm currently doing if you look for me on my business page, which you could just Facebook pages, and then my name is Monifa Harris Voice. And then so you could put that in the URL, or you can just look for me, Monifa Harris Voice, in the search engine.
Yes. And Monifa's always sharing some brilliant content on Facebook too. I love to see what's new and coming out over there. So tune in on all channels. Oh, and the podcast that you and your friend are putting out, what's it called?
Ephemeral.
Ephemeral. E-F-E-M. Earl.
Earl.
I'll put that in the notes too, so you can check out their conversations and explorations in matters of voice and expression.
Yeah, expression, showing up, communication. We cover all the things, and the energy of feminine, masculine, and what that means and how it means to your self-expression, or what it means to your self-expression. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Monifa. Have a beautiful day. Talk with you soon.
Bye. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in today. Check out the show notes for any links we mentioned. To learn more about living life with less stress and more flow, visit happifiedlife.com. And if you found value in today's episode, make sure you subscribe to catch the next one, and leave a review to help fellow pod surfers find Happified. Until next time, keep on shining.